To talk about this tonight, let's bring in Catherine Korakakis. She is the head of the English Parents Committee Association of Quebec, and Erin Madden, a high school teacher and mother of two in Ottawa. And Erin, let me begin with you. How do you feel about cell phone bans in classrooms?
I think they're long overdue in Ontario. And even though we have a theoretical ban, I don't think it's been enforced. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion because I'm hoping that it can lead to some change.
And why do you feel so strongly that it needs to be in place?
Well, I've been teaching for almost 20 years and I've taught across Ontario. So in Thunder Bay, in Sudbury, and now in Ottawa. And I've seen the implementation of Wi-Fi and cell phones and computers and technology in the classroom. And it's moving at an unprecedented rate. When I was back in Thunder Bay, there was a time when we would take away cell phones, but I was working at a school of 1,200. And during that time, I mean, we got to the point where we were taking 300 cell phones away a day, and then it
Wow.
became untenable. And the
Yeah.
office staff were working for a couple hours after school, and parents were upset having to come get them, or
Yeah.
cell phones would get lost.
I'll definitely come back to you, but Catherine, let me bring you into this conversation. Where do you stand on this issue of cell phone bans in classrooms?
I think that they don't go far enough. I think that just taking a phone away becomes a punitive measure and doesn't really teach a child about the addiction, doesn't teach the child about being a digital citizen, and also doesn't teach a child about fake news. And we've seen the effects of this. So I just don't think that just taking a phone away is really going to change anything, because then what will happen, think about with anytime we take something away from a kid, as soon as they have it, they're using it more and more. And I think that just taking something away without having the learning component behind it is a completely missed opportunity and won't really address this important issue.
Yeah, so those things you're talking about, teaching about, for example, fake news, is super important, obviously. But just so that I understand clearly, do you also think that there should be a ban on cell phones in classrooms or not?
There's already a ban in Quebec for cell phones in classroom. It's just got into effect. But what I'm saying is it doesn't change anything. So why are we taking the phones away? We're taking the phones away because children are addicted to them. And the pandemic exacerbated the issue, and it's clear. And we've never seen such high levels of anxiety or depression in kids. This is a fact. But just taking a phone away without teaching or even naming the fact that this is an addiction, without going into fake news, being a digital citizen, won't do anything. It's just a punitive measure.
I want to play a clip from a professor we spoke to. Sachin Maharaj is at the University of Ottawa.
Latest results show that in Canada and many other developed countries, students' performance in math, reading, and science has been steadily declining over the past decade. The use of digital technologies and phones in particular is one of those factors.
So, Erin, is taking away cell phones enough, or is there more that we need to do?
I definitely think there's more. I have lots of ideas on what we can do, but I do think that the ban is also necessary because I think the addiction is there. So like I said, many years ago, maybe a couple students were suffering with it. But I think now if I have a class of 30, there might be 10. I'm seeing a third that are having severe addiction issues to the point where they can't concentrate in class. They can't do their homework. They're not sleeping well at night. And so these students need our help now. So I think that I actually am advocating for having courses all from primary school into secondary about appropriate use of technology. I think we have to do that. But I think we also have to address the addiction as it stands now.
So, you know who we haven't heard from so far in this conversation is some high school students. So one of our producers went out to a high school in Toronto, and here's what he heard.
You in favor of a ban on cell phones in schools?
No.
No, there would be an outrage.
I'd be pretty sad.
I can understand if it would happen.
You didn't really pay for it like my parents did, and you don't have a right to take it away.
It feels like an invasion of personal space.
That's my property. I'm not gonna give it.
I know a lot of my teachers get frustrated sometimes.
As long as I get it back, then it's fine.
After a while, it's just like, just get off your phone. Like, please just pay attention for like 5 minutes.
Okay, maybe not that last student, but a lot of these kids really want to have their cell phones with them. And Catherine, you went through this with your own kids. How tough was it for them to get away from their phones?
My goodness, coming out of the pandemic, it was a total detox. They were addicted like never before because there was lockdowns, they couldn't go out. So we had to have a lot of conversations. We had to do a lot of work, and there was a lot of tears and a lot of crying fits, but we were able to do it. But I have to say, it really took a super long time.
And Erin, as a teacher who's dealt with this with kids in class, how successful have you been in terms of getting kids to stop using their phones?
I find that the students that are really addicted, I might have to talk to them, 7, 8, 9 times a period. If I know them really well, I might try to take it away from them just to help them out. I've had varying levels of success. Some students are really good at regulating, other students are not. Some studies are showing that students are on their cell phones now on average 7 to 9 hours a day. And it's recommended that they should only be on all devices, any technology and screen for about 2 hours. I have some students in my classrooms, they brag that they're on their cell phone for 16 hours a day. When you look at that, I mean, if you picture there's 24 hours and if you sleep for 8, that means you're on it the entire time. So I don't think you can learn during that.
We have about a minute left, so maybe last words from each of you, starting with Catherine.
So you saw from the students that the addiction is really real, just from that little clip. And that's why I'm saying just taking the phones away will do nothing. It will just make them use the phones even worse at home. And then they won't sleep. They'll be on their phones. Their homework won't be done. And if we don't start naming that this is, for me, it's like a pandemic. We have to deal with it. It's an epidemic, not a pandemic. An epidemic. We have to deal with this.
And Erin, you're telling me that students, like, they want to have their phones in their hand.
Oh, at all times. So the ones that have real difficulty and who struggle with it, what'll happen is if I ask them to put away the cell phone, they might try to put it in their pocket and then it ends up on their lap. And then I ask them to put it in their bags and then it'll be in their bag and then on their lap and then on their desk and then in their hand. So they have a real difficult time actually not having it in their hands.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've both given us a really clear sense of, the extent of the problem and how difficult it's going to be to properly deal with it. Thanks to both of you for chatting with us.
Thank you.
Ian.